How did you get to New York City?
In a car. In a 2004 Chevy Trailblazer. It was black. It was 2010, June 1st. And I moved up here with my band from college that I'd been playing with for, I think, about 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and had just graduated a month before. Didn't have a job, I'd been to New York before. I knew a little bit about it. I was a little bit more aware of Williamsburg, where I was moving, because there was a music boom happening at the time with indie rock. And I truly thought that I would get there, start practicing with my band, start playing shows around New York, and that'd be it. I did not really give much thought to how I was going to afford to live here.
Yeah.
Which was a very jarring experience. But I got here, with my band, and kind of just hit the ground running of like, I don't know where I am, and I'm just going to figure it out.
Tell me about the band. How did it come together?
We came together. Good question. We came together. I think we had just similar music interests of like proggy, alternative rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Chili Peppers.
Hell yeah.
And the singer and I were in the same fraternity, so we just met, talked about music, and started playing party. It's like the classic college band story. We were just playing parties and had a great time doing it. We were writing music. We recorded at least 1, maybe 2 albums while we were in college. And it's kind of wild thinking back to it, because I didn't consider any other option other than playing music. Like at that period of time, I was like, oh, I'm playing music in college. I'm going to class. I wasn't studying music. I was studying political science.
Really?
Yeah. But like, I don't know what it was about me and my personality. There was no part of me that was like, well, after college, I'm going to go and do this politics thing, or I'm going to do, I just was like, I'm just playing music, and I'm probably going to play music. Bit of a blessing and a curse. I think I wasn't thinking that far ahead. So I was very in the moment of, this is what I'm doing. This is what I love doing. This is what I've always loved doing. And I'm going to figure out a way to keep doing it.
Did the band unanimously agree that New York was the destination, that was where you wanted to go?
Well, the guitarist and the singer, we kept revolving around bassists. So the guitarist and the singer and I were kind of the core members. Those 2 guys were actually a year older than me. So they graduated from college the year before I did. They came up to Jersey, where the singer lived, and they were kind of trying out this area. They were commuting in and out of the city, like just getting to know New York a little bit in the scene. And at that point, I was still in college. I kind of was doing some other musical stuff because they were gone, but we were still in touch. We were like, what do we want to do? And I also had surrendered to the possibility that we were not going to play together again. They were gone, but through our communications over that year, they were kind of like, look, New York is happening right now. Why don't you just move up here when you graduate? And again, since they were up here, they started exploring like where we could live, where we could get a studio, all the like the logistical pieces that I didn't really have the capacity to look into. And they sold me on it. And as soon as I graduated, I was like, I was in a car heading up here.
Had there been enough successes during college where you've thought, there's a reasonable chance we can pull this off?
No.
What gave you the confidence to think that New York, that you could make it here, that it would work out?
I think that's the interesting thing to think about now. And it's wild that we're talking about this, because I haven't really given it thought before.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a beginner's mindset of just like, being a college kid. And I think also in 2010, like I said, there was this musical boom happening in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn. And without being there, one could imagine that as like this, oh, you just show up and you start playing shows and everyone's getting a record deal and everyone's seeing live music. And in some ways that was the case. I mean, it's funny being in Williamsburg right in this moment while we're talking.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
most of those venues are completely gone. There's no residue of those venues now. So, but at that time, there was so much live music happening and people were going to shows. Like people were coming out to our shows who we had never met before. And in college, we were getting enough of like, again, people were coming to the shows because we were playing at parties and we were playing at bars. So I think there's maybe a little bit of a misconstrued success. Like we were like, we're making it, but we're also in a small town in Virginia. Like it's hard to know what was what and what was possible. And this was also the time when Twitter and Facebook were starting to really take off as ways for artists to market themselves. And our singer happened to also have a full-time job in the digital marketing landscape. So he was like, I think we could actually use what's happening digitally right now and showcase our band in a new way. So I think it all was coming from this place of like, anything is possible. Like that beginner's mindset, that like invincibility of being a 20-year-old, 22-year-old. But no, we weren't like, didn't really have any success that was like notable, you know?
Were you always a musician from the time you were young?
Yeah.
You were a kid? I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah. All of my memories in my life really like revolve around music and are very music centric. My mom always likes to talk about how I was singing before I was talking, or at least by the time I was talking, I was singing. Like singing has always been a part of my life. I don't consider myself a singer professionally, but I can carry a tune. I understand melody and harmony, and I was in choirs and I took piano lessons. And I think most notably as like a younger kid, I have 3 younger siblings, and my mom would play the piano and have us all stand around the piano with her and like sing together on a nightly basis. It was just kind of a thing that would happen in our house. So, and we would also have music playing, and I was being introduced to lots of children's artists, but a lot of contemporary artists too. And my siblings and I were all really encouraged to listen to music and play music. And it was a lot of focus on play, specifically musically.
So you're in college, you're getting a degree in political science.
Yeah.
Was there much thought to any other path for you? It sounds like you always knew you had this thing happening and working with this group of guys. Yeah. Did you consider an alternative path, or there was really nothing else on the table?
At the time, it's hard to remember fully looking like,
sure.
But my memory is that I wasn't really giving much thought to anything else. I did spend one summer interning at a law firm in my hometown in Virginia, and absolutely hated it. And I think that was probably the moment when I think I would have been like sophomore going to junior year. And I was like, all right, well, I'm a poli-sci major. I need to like give this thing a go. I need to like do the thing that is going to help my resume and work at a law firm for the summer, and gave it a full shot. And it was just not fun. Not that jobs need to be fun, but it was soul crushing.
Yeah.
And I went back to school like my junior year and still continued to have excitement around components of political science, but was also like, I think truly I probably felt a little stuck and a little pressured into like societally to do the thing that like the normal thing, the quote unquote normal thing of get the degree in the stable like pathway that is going to get you a quote unquote stable job. And I do think that my parents were very, very supportive of me doing really whatever I wanted with life. And they really made it a known point that I did need to get a college degree. And I mean, my dad even really had, like, he was a proponent of me having a like warehouse job, like a real like blue collar job. One summer, I like drove a forklift before senior year in a warehouse because he really wanted me to see like what the workforce looked like. on like the spectrum of, okay, yeah, you don't have to get a college degree and there are jobs. This is what it looks like. This is one of the ways that looks. And I took all of that data, I processed it, I thought about it. And I do think that, again, if I could get inside of my 21-year-old brain, I think that on the surface, I was like, yeah, I'm getting a political science degree and I'm going through the motions and I'm passing my classes. But I think that there was probably something happening underneath the surface that I wasn't willing to or able to express that was like, this is not what I want to be doing. And every single band practice that I got to have, or even I remember taking a poetry class my senior year, and that was my favorite class of college. Just like being an artist, like writing and feeling expressive. I was like, yes, this is it. You know what I mean? So I think I got a little bit trapped in the 4-year cycle of college of like, I'm already pot committed. I got to stick with this thing, but I'm not going to let it consume me fully. I'm going to keep at least one foot in my world of being an artist.
To stay open.
And again, I think when I got closer to graduation and people are like starting to look for jobs, and again, the 2010 job market was pretty shitty. So there wasn't like, I was applying to stuff, but wasn't really getting bites. And I was just like, I am just going to go to New York and play music and assume that it works out. And which is still kind of my personality. I kind of have this very optimistic approach of like, everything's just going to work out. I'm going to figure it out because I've always figured it out. So it's going to work out.
The lessons, I don't know if you thought about this in a while, but the blue collar work that you were talking about, you did of driving a forklift. Like, what do you remember? It seems like your dad wanted you to learn something from that experience. What did you learn from that experience?
I mean, it was an epic job. I mean, it was hard. It was like getting there at 6 a.m. It was like a 6 to 3 kind of shift. And I was dirty and I was, sweaty every day. And it was a summer and it was a big warehouse. But like, there was a lot of monotony to it. And I hated that piece, but I loved the purposefulness of it, of like, okay, now you need to get on the forklift and you need to drive this thing from this point to this point. I'm like, sick. I get to drive a forklift. This is amazing. And there was 1 month, like the full like July of that summer. We were a warehouse that housed like naval supplies because I grew up in this very military town in Southern Virginia. And so we had to process everything that came in and out of the warehouse that like came in from the producers and went to the Navy ships. And that was like computer work. It's like putting the thing in and like making sure it's just like very monotonous, laborious work on the computer. And that 1 month, I processed more things in and out of the warehouse than anyone had ever processed in the warehouse. And I remember, and all my colleagues were like in their probably 50s to 60s. It was a lot of like retired Navy people or people who had been doing this forever. And I was like the youngest by at least 20 years. And everyone was like, Caleb, slow down, man. You're making us look bad. It was kind of like in jest. It wasn't like,
I get it.
But they were, and it was my first time understanding. And I remember going home and telling my dad about it. He's like, yeah, they're working hourly. There's no push for them to get a number of things done because they get paid by the hour. And I think that was like mind blowing for me. I was like, but they have a thing to get done. Why wouldn't you just get all the things done? You're there for this period of time. And I think I noticed that in that work environment, it was a little bit of like this is just what I do every single day. There was no purpose behind it. It was, we do this thing every single day. We clock in, we clock out. There was also this very distinct memory of, let's just say we left at 3 every day, everyone lined up at the gate at 2:55.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like we were getting ready to go at like 2:35. You know what I mean? It was like taking the trash or doing all the little tasks. And so that everyone was at their car by 3. And that felt like this fun, weird gamification for me as like a 20-year-old, where I was like, I don't really understand why we're doing this, but it clearly, like, no one likes being here. And I remember getting home every day, and I'm a college kid in like my summer break, and all my friends were like, let's go to the bar. And I'm like, I'm so tired. And they're doing like lifeguarding jobs. I'm like, what do you mean go out? I need to go to sleep at 6. And so I think the lesson that my dad wanted me to learn, and I think the lesson I learned is like, I need more purpose in my life. I can't have monotony. Like, and that was the thing with the law firm too. Even there, you know, granted, I was like a college intern at a law firm. There's not a lot you can do without much experience, but monotony was the thing. And I really get like so allergic and just run down by monotony. I need shiny moving pieces. I need to feel stimulated. And I think the challenge of being an artist and not knowing what's next gives me a lot of life and a lot of buzz.
What do you think the monotony does to you? Do you find it stifling? What is it about the monotony, do you think, that kind of kills your soul? Yeah.
I find it stifling. I feel that my light dims like a little flickering flame inside of me. And I even remember I was writing a lot more like lyrics, like poems back then. And there were days where I literally had nothing to do in this warehouse. I just like sitting there because we were caught up on our processing. And I would bring a notebook and write. And there was one day where I was writing. I felt like the most creatively alive as I was writing on the page. But I remember being like, this is the least stimulating environment, you know, and like just trying to milk any sort of creativity out of that space felt like this arduous process of like it's already bone dry. There's nothing to squeeze, but I'm really trying my best. And it was very stifling. Yeah.
I mean, dude, it sounds like a little bit like a prison. Like for half of their lives, it's this clock in, clock out, and you're serving a 10 to 20 year sentence.
Truly. I wouldn't be surprised if what I was writing had the word prison in it or bars. Like, I think there was probably something in my writing, because even you saying that, I think I said something like cardboard prison. I actually think was the idea. Because I was just like always like breaking down boxes and making boxes and smell like just like covered in cardboard residue. And I think that there was like a cardboard prison thing that I talked about. So yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Your interest in music, I know you're a percussionist primarily at this point, I think. But like, I'd love to hear the arc of what, you know, everything that you have been involved in that has led you to settling on the instrument that you now play. You can take that however you'd like in whatever detail, but I'd love to hear about how you came to this point.
Yeah. Well, I started playing drums in 6th grade and really kind of fell into it because my mom really like forced me to take a semester of band class. And it was one of these things maybe anyone who's taken band will resonate with, where you have to try all the instruments. And I was just like, this is so stupid. I felt like such a, you know, I don't feel this way now. We were talking before this about how much like brass instruments I'm in a brass band and I love horns and every instrument. But at the time I was like, ugh, nerds. Like, I don't want to play any of these things. And drums, percussion was the last thing that we got to try, or that I got to try. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is easy. I got it. And there was no question about it. I'm playing drums, and my band teacher really wasn't a drummer, knew like enough to set us up, but he didn't really have much to teach me. And kind of just, he like taught me how to sit at a drum set and gave me like the very, very basic like drum set pattern. And I was like, okay, I'll figure it out from here. And used it as this entry point to start listening to my favorite music from a percussive perspective of like, oh, well, what are the drums doing right now? How do I mimic them? And that's what I did. I somehow got a drum set. My parents let me put it in our garage and spent hours dissecting songs that I loved and playing along to them with no instruction. There's no YouTube. There's nothing for me to watch. Except at the same time, I was a member of the Colonial Williamsburg Fife and Drum Corps in Virginia. And I was a fifer, which is a Colonial flute. And this is like this 50-year-old program now. It's like this. It's a very big honor to be a part of it. My parents put me on the waiting list when I was born, and I got accepted in around the same time. Wanted to be a drummer because drumming just looked cooler. So I already had like this germinating seed of drums in my life. But they only had one spot left, and it was to play fife. And I was like, all right, again, kind of the same thing, like, ugh, nerds. Like, I don't want to play this nerdy-looking flute. But I understood that it was a big honor. My parents really wanted me to do it. It was a job I got paid to play. And I was reenacting. I was like wearing a 18th century uniform, being a professional musician in 6th grade, like performing in Williamsburg, Virginia. And so at the same time, I was watching all these kids my age learn like kind of more traditional snare drums and bass drums. And I'd be in these practice sessions learning the fife, but I'd hear the drum parts and I'd be watching them. I'm like, I can do what they're doing. All I have to do is like every time I go to my classes there, just like watch the drummers too. And take any moment I can to like sneak their music away from them. So I was learning by like osmosis, this kind of like rudimentary 18th century drumming style. And I would take that back to my band class and like take it to my drum set. And I was like listening to rock and just kind of doing this weird Frankenstein thing of creating my own language of drumming. Played in a lot of bands through middle school, high school. We were just like writing a bunch of music, doing that whole thing. And, mentioned finally moving to New York. And once I got here and my band was playing a lot, we were having a lot of fun. I was really digging that. And I got invited to play at a dance party in like 2014 by now a dear friend of mine. And he was like, do you have like a hand drum, like a djembe to bring to the dance party? And I was like, yeah, I have a djembe, which I'd gotten in college because I didn't have space to have a drum set in my dorm room freshman year. So I had this djembe, didn't even have a strap to wear it. So I went to like some drum store in Brooklyn, bought a strap, went to this dance party. There's a DJ, there was a trumpet player, a trombone player, and I'm playing with the DJ. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I know how to follow a beat and I'll just like play along. And it lit something up inside of me that I'd never felt before. I was like, well, this is crazy. People are on the dance floor 2 feet from me, dancing with me while I'm playing drums. Like, this is sick. And meanwhile, with my rock band, we're on stage, we have like a decent sized audience, but like people aren't dancing to it. Like, I want to like incite madness. I want to incite dance and movement and people letting their freak flags fly. And so I really started going down this path of like playing with DJs, playing at more of a dance party kind of setting, and also immersing myself more in world percussion. And I was recommended this book, Drumming at the Edge of Magic, by my friend Parvati around the same time. I ordered the book and found out that it was written by one of the drummers of the Grateful Dead, Mickey Hart, who's one of my idols, one of my biggest inspirations. And I realized by reading this book, like I was like, this is the most seen I have ever felt reading this book. I felt like this book was speaking directly to me.
Wow.
This book is talking about the ethnomusicology of rhythm, of drumming, the power that drumming and rhythm have always had from a spiritual perspective, from a ritualistic perspective, from a communication perspective, how it's so embedded in these cultures around the world. And I was like, yes, of course. It's not about being on stage at a rock club in New York, playing for 60 minutes and getting really sweaty. That's a blast. I love doing that. But there's something so much deeper and like primal about rhythm and drumming that I felt instinctually, but hadn't been taught, hadn't been able to put words to. And all of a sudden this book was clearly putting all the words on paper that I had been feeling in my body. And it really set me on this path of rhythm, not just drumming, but rhythm, and learning more about the rhythms of our body, of rhythms of life, how they connect, how they can neuroscientifically impact us and really make a big impact on our lives from a mental health perspective.
How did that? Because it almost sounds like there were just words put to something you kind of already knew, almost like subconsciously.
Yeah.
And like clarifying that gave you, or articulating that clarified for your own instincts.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding that story correctly, and maybe it even further encouraged you to follow that gut feel.
Yeah.
So where did you take it thereafter? Did you prioritize a certain type of drumming over another? I'd love to hear how that fit into the rest of your career.
Yeah, I mean, it was very validating. To your point. Yeah, exactly. It was super valid. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm on the right track. And even looking back at notes from around that time period that I made for myself of like rhythm as a tool, like all these little things were starting to come out in my writing and my journaling, and I was like, yes, I'm on the right track. There's something here. And it inspired me to want to start a documentary about drumming, to kind of take like the Anthony Bourdain approach of drumming, of like, well, what would it look like for me to travel around the world and learn about the drumming cultures of these different places and to document them. And I started working on what that would look like. And it took me, it was, again, one of those, similar to how I was describing my experience moving to New York. This period of time, I felt so just like, I'm just going to do this thing. And even looking back now, I'm like, how the fuck did I do? Like, what gave me the right? What gave me the permission? What gave me the like audacity and to do this? Cause I'd never made a film before. I did a lot of camera stuff when I was a kid just to mess around, but like wasn't a filmmaker or didn't consider myself a filmmaker. And, I ended up putting together an Indiegogo campaign to raise money, like created this, pitch deck, so to speak, of what this first, like this pilot episode would look like. And, went to Ghana in 2017.
Whoa.
And spent a month and a half there traveling around, meeting professors and drummers and dancers and musicians and ethnomusicologists, and just like embedding myself in all these different musical cultures of this one very rhythmically rich country. And again, like it just, the whole process was a lot of me asking for help, like little by little, being like, hey, well, I'm gonna go to Ghana in 2 months. Who do I need to talk to? And all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, people who I both knew and didn't know, they were like, you should talk to this person, talk to this person. And when I got to Ghana, doors just kept opening for me. I was like, I literally landed with basically no interviews lined up because the advice that I had been given was, they were like, well, the thing about Ghana is like, you kind of have to be there. Like if you email someone or WhatsApp them, like, everyone runs on Africa time, as they say. So like, you can't really schedule something a month out. You got to just kind of be there. I'm like, that's terrifying. What do you mean? Like I work off Google Calendar. And it was really a surrender experiment. And I use that phrase intentionally because that book, I don't know if you're familiar with it, The Surrender Experiment, I read right before I went, and it kind of was one of the pieces that gave me permission to make this happen. It was really all about like, look, you got to do the first thing, surrender, and then the next thing is going to keep happening. Like if you believe that that's going to happen, if you believe that anything is possible, you surrender to the magic of the universe, and doors will be open for you. And that's what happened. I just found my way around this country and got really incredible footage, really incredible experiences. And, it changed my life. It really set me down this path for, sharing this narrative. I called the documentary The Rhythm of Happiness, and that has since become the name of my company, my project, my work. Even in all of its different evolutions since that was 2017, so the last almost decade, I've been moving through my different projects with this hypothesis that by tapping into rhythm, we can really find like true joy, true happiness. And I believe that it's this connective tissue that can bring people together. And I really wanted to experience that in other parts of the world where I feel that creativity and self-expression haven't been as stifled and shut down as they have been here
for sure
in the West.
It's just fucking incredible. What do you, I'm sure there were many things, but now speaking about this 10 years later, like what did you primarily mostly learn from the people you met over there, from the experiment of making this film?
Everyone was really open to giving. There was no, everything was pretty easy. It would be a conversation and like hey, this is my, talking to someone that I had met there and sharing that this is what I want to do. Can we find this person? And they're like, yeah, let's figure it out. I know this person. We'll call them. We'll WhatsApp them. We probably have to go find them at this like food stand, and then we'll go to this place, and and it was just like everyone was just like very like, yeah, what else do you want to do? It was like a very yes and kind of set of interactions, and I felt that there was an immense amount of love and trust that was extended to me right away, and music, and like just I think one of the questions that I would ask everyone was like, do you believe that everyone has rhythm? And they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course. Like, why are we having this conversation right now? Which was a little bit like, duh, I knew that was going to be the case, but I wanted to hear other people say it, because I would walk around and see the way people like just jingle their keys, or the way that every cab driver honks their horn to a rhythm. And like, there's just like this other thing happening there that I'm like, it's just different. People are moving to rhythm in a different way than they are here. People are like in their own groove, but also in like this groove of the entire community. And obviously that exists in its own way here, but there's like this entrainment happening there where it feels like there is a coherence. There's a rhythm that everyone follows and is tapped into. Whereas here, it's like everyone's on their own journey, and there's so much just like internal shut offness that it's hard to listen to the other person. I think that there's like this active listening happening. It's all conversation. There's like this beautiful rhythm to the way that people speak there. And it all feels very all in flow, all happening together. And I think coming back here, my desire was to tap into that feeling and to try and share that with the world. I think there's a level of joy, of like happiness that I felt there, that felt very at ease. Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Take some of that and potentially inject it into New York culture or American culture.
Exactly.
In some way.
Exactly.
How and why did you pick Ghana of all places to go to in the world?
Well, I kind of had narrowed it down to, again, a lot of it came from that book I was reading.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot about the different, like very specific types of drumming and rhythm that exist around the world. India was a big one that I was considering. Brazil was a big one I was considering. West Africa in general has a very rich history of drumming. The djembe is evolved, is born out of West Africa. So I was kind of like, those were kind of, I think, the main areas I was looking at. Cuba as well. Certainly those are not the only countries or areas of the world with rich rhythmic history, but those were the big ones that stood out when I was really like reading this book and doing a lot of my initial research. And then I was like, all right, well, from all those places, what calls to me more? From what calls to me more, and Africa, West Africa specifically really called to me. I don't really know why. I mean, I think it was because I was playing the djembe a lot already. I was like, I'm already kind of immersing myself in this instrument. I feel like I should go to the roots of that. And then when I started reaching out to people who, generally asking, who do I know who's connected to West Africa, I talked to a number of people who were like, oh, I've actually spent a lot of time in Ghana. I had a friend who made a film in Ghana. I was like, okay, well, I had another friend who had studied in Ghana for many years and like had actually studied with a drummer in Ghana who was like this amazing woman drummer, like female drummer in Ghana. And I was like, all right, I think there's something there. It's pretty easy to get to. Accra is like one of the most westernized cities in West Africa, if not Africa. So it feels like an easier access point. And also inside of Ghana, which is a fairly small geographic area, there are very diverse drumming cultures. So I also knew that for a pilot episode, I could get a lot of very dynamic, rich content by just being in that one country. Those are kind of all the variables that pointed me there.
You were talking about the experience of just noticing the flow of the people over there and like the rhythm almost of the culture. I don't know how much you've thought about this. I would imagine quite a bit, just the difference between... I've heard other artists actually make similar comments about this, other musicians, about how other cultures are just more... There's more of like a sense of musicality to their movements and their just day-to-day life than certainly Manhattan or New York City. And how you think about the difference in, the lack of movement oftentimes here, not universally, but largely as the prevailing experience versus a place like Ghana, which I've never been to, but it sounds like has a palpable sense of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean...
Like where the difference comes from. Why have we either lost that or not cultivated that?
I think it's both. I think we've both lost it and not cultivated it. Because I think that I do a lot of work with kids, and kids are a lot of fun to work with because they have a lot of permission to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's like I get so many videos. I literally got one 2 days ago. So many videos from friends with little kids, babies even, who are like, "Hey, when will you start giving drum lessons? What's the earliest age?" And it'll be like a video of their kid like banging on something. I'm like, "Yeah, perfect." Like, and my response to my friend the other day was like, "When can your kids start teaching me?" Like that's what I want to see. I love watching kids interact with music, but specifically with rhythm, because there is this like, there's not a thought about it. And so I think that it is, it's there inherently for every child, for like little kids. It's always there. Is it cultivated? Is there permission given to continue doing it? Are you allowed to bang on the table or make chaotic noises as you're getting older? Is it a distraction? Are you in class and your teacher's like, "Hey, you're being too loud. Pipe down." Are your parents doing that? So I think what's present in Ghana, certainly probably other cultures too, but that I can really speak to from experience, is this is just what we're doing. Like everyone is making music and noise, and we're dancing in class, and we're playing drums in class, and like funerals have everyone clapping, weddings have everyone clapping. Like there's like always community gatherings where there is some kind of musical expression where there's not a second thought given to it. I was actually invited to a lot of funerals while I was there, which were incredible. It was like these amazing celebrations of life where everyone was dancing and clapping and like drumming and playing little like tambourines and wood blocks, things that like oftentimes here we see as toys, like children's toys. Like children are given little percussion toys, shakers, tambourines, but like but then it's not reinforces like that's actually an instrument, right? It's like a thing that they can make noise and play with, but at some point we take it away because it's distracting and it's not like additive to whatever education, life. Maybe it's a distraction. It's annoying. I think we have it at our fingertips. It's just we don't give the permission to continue that form of self-expression and play.
Do you attribute that to the role of religion, the role of such an, I mean, you talked about how, insistent your parents were on you getting a college degree, just the seriousness of a lot of people being intentional about work and accomplishing things in America. And some of that I understand totally. How do you make that distinguish? How do you think about what it was that has suppressed that? I mean, I think a lot of people are arguably even just shamed out of continuing that kind of rhythm, the cultivation of their own rhythm and their musical interests as they get older, because it's something you do when you're young, and it's not really for adults.
Totally. It's such a, I love, it's such a funny statement, and it's not funny. It's actually sad. I think it's disappointing, but it's funny in that
it's sort of like saying smiling is for kids.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but exactly, and it's so wild to me. I perform at a lot of big events with DJs, with my brass band, and the amount of times, like I do a lot of weddings, and the amount of times that people at a wedding either come up to one of the horn players and they're like, I played trombone in 3rd grade, or I played saxophone when I was in high school. And then the follow-up question is like, oh, cool. Do you still play? And they're like, no, I didn't take it seriously. Or, no, like my parents made me do this. Or like, no, like I needed to, it's like, there's always like a kind of like, bummer. Like I would have loved to, especially now in hindsight. And there's like this light in their eyes of like, I remember that thing. Yeah. Even if they only played it for 1 year, there's like this, like, there's a connection they feel to that. The other one that I always get as the percussionist, because like, if you're playing a saxophone, I can't just come grab your saxophone and play it, but anyone can come up to me with my drum and bang it. Yeah. And it happens to me every single time I perform. Someone, if I'm accessible, someone comes and like bangs on my drum at least once. And for a long time, it really annoyed me because a lot of times those people are very drunk. I'm sure. A lot of times they have like sticky cocktail fingers and they're like, get it. And it's like just gross and it's annoying. And sometimes it still is, but I had a turning point a couple of years ago where I was like, my whole thing is like giving people permission to play. If I actually take that mindset and apply it here, this person just wants, maybe they're drunk, maybe they're like, whatever, but like they just want to be connected. They want to connect to the beat. They feel the beat. They feel the music. They feel moved by it and they want to express it. Who am I to shut that down? Yeah. And so now I wouldn't say that's my favorite part of an experience, but like I'm open to it. And I think I get this like this weird insight into people's soul in that moment. Like I'm almost like, that's the most connected I feel to a stranger. They come up and play my drum and they're not always, but usually pretty thankful. They're like, thanks for letting me do that. Sometimes they'll apologize. And it's really, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to give people that permission, even just for 20 seconds. Yeah. You're almost like the ghost of Christmas past. Yeah. Like you're like an amnesic memory that you gift to someone for 30 seconds or whatever. Yeah. How do you think about how people, stiff American, no rhythm adults can try to inject some of this rhythm into their life? Yeah. Well, to go back a little bit on your question. Please. Yeah. And this is where I love this piece because I love pushing back on it, on the no rhythm piece. Okay. Because like that's the thing. I love a challenge, as evidenced by my moving to New York with no job, going to Ghana with no film experience. I love a challenge. Yeah. And when someone says, and it happens all the time, I have no rhythm, or like, come do this company retreat with me, but like I don't have rhythm. Like, perfect. You're my perfect candidate because you do have, like, just inherently being alive, you have rhythm. Yeah. And it sounds maybe kind of silly and like, oh, here we go. Caleb's talking about rhythm again. But like the way your heart is beating to a rhythm literally all the time. You are breathing to a rhythm. You are walking to a rhythm. The rhythm of your mother's heart is the first thing that you hear in utero. It's like it's so ingrained in our lives, but we don't give thought to it. And anyone who says they don't have rhythm has probably been to a concert or a live experience where they have all been clapping together with the music. Like that is rhythm. That's entrainment. That's like coherence. They, if you do like a thing, like you're like, bup, 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 everyone goes bup, bup, like that's rhythm, right? It's all there. It's really just giving yourself permission to maybe be a little bit abnormal, not even abnormal, just silly.
In touch with it.
In touch with it. Yeah. And like, maybe that means you're going to look silly or look like your inhibitions are down. But what's wrong with that? I think it's really more of a issue of people not having the permission. And I have found that when I create the container of permission, where it's like, look, here's a drum, follow this pattern. I'm going to give you some patterns, call and response. Everyone gets it eventually. Maybe there are people who are more like rhythmically inclined than others. And I don't think everyone is destined to be a professional drummer, but I believe like wholeheartedly that everyone does have rhythm. And when we can get in touch with it, again, there is this like freedom. There is this opportunity to be fully self-expressed in a very like natural way. Yeah. That's like just inherent to being a human being.
You gave such a great point there about how the first thing all humans ever hear is a beat. Yeah. I'd never thought about that before. And this is something I wanted to bring up with you, which is the reason why it's true that all people, this is like part of our biology. As animals, it's just sort of baked into human nature. How do you make sense of why it is that all human beings have this propensity? I mean, I have a nephew who's 3.5 years old, and his favorite song comes on. This guy is just like going crazy. All kids are like this. Where do you think that is? How do you explain how that's rooted in us?
Well, I think it is in our. I think it is in our biology, and the fact that in this fact that that is what we hear, that is what we are tied to. Like we are hearing before we're really experiencing and feeling before our other senses. Like that's and I think that there is a natural connection to that pulse, to that beat that is still alive when you're a baby. Like we don't really remember much from that period of time, but like we're on a cycle. We are like sleeping and eating, and we're like tuning into our parents' cycles and how they are raising us. And there is for like babies who are having a hard time breastfeeding early on, they have different rhythmic instruments that you can play that mimic the sound that they're hearing in utero to reconnect them to that sound. So there is something very calming about that. That brings us back to like our natural state. And I also think that there is just babies are very aware, like they're very like, they're paying attention to their surroundings. And this idea of entrainment where we hear a sound, like a rhythm, a pulse, and we connect to it is a natural human tendency. Like that's what's happening when we are breathing together, like in a breathwork class. It happens when we live in New York versus when we live in upstate New York. If we have a lot of traffic and a lot of busyness, our heart rate, our breath pattern is naturally heightened. It's faster. If we live upstate by a babbling brook, our breathing, our heartbeat is more entrained to those like lower, slower frequencies. So I think that children are more tapped into that than adults who have gone through these different institutions, whether it's school, church, whatever, that are a little bit more dogmatic in their teaching and rigid in how you are able to express yourself.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this as someone who has spent his life in the world of rhythm. In your mind, who are the bands that when you hear their rhythm now, you just can't help but just fucking love them? Like their beats. And to me, as I get older, I've noticed this is the kind of music I'm very drawn to, is like, it's not the lyrics, it's the beat.
Yeah.
It's the sound. That is just some sort of connection there.
Yeah.
Who are your favorites? Who do you go to for inspiration and just love of rhythm?
I mean, the artist, the artist that I listen to the most that gives me true peace and joy is Fela Kuti. Are you familiar with Fela? Okay. Well, prepare yourself. Okay. Fela Kuti, I mean, he basically invented or popularized the Afrobeat genre. He's kind of like, I kind of think him as almost like the Bob Marley of Nigeria. I mean, he was very politically active. It was around the same time period, and he was really like popularizing this music that was pretty like commonplace and happening in Nigeria. It's like really a fusion of jazz and different African rhythms. And I mean, some of these songs are like 15 minutes long, and the first 7 minutes is just a groove. It's just like repetitive drums and percussion and saxophone and horns. And it is transportive. It is like a meditation. It is absolutely stunning. I love it so much. Truly like my favorite music. And it gives me a lot of life. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, I was just having this conversation with a number of friends. We were doing a big listening party a week or so ago, bringing in different music from our childhood that we love.
Oh, awesome.
Which was such a great practice. Yeah. It was really moving. And we were talking, like, when you listen to music, what do you hear first? Is it the lyrics? Is it the instrumentation? Is it the beat? And I think almost all of us said that it was like usually the beat. It was like the pulse of it.
Yeah.
And I've actually been kind of going back to hip hop recently, and realizing that like a lot of the hip hop grooves of the like 90s and early 2000s are so epic. It's like, and in the rhythm of the actual rapping, like the lyrics, yes, amazing, but not even the lyrics, just like how they are speaking relative to the beat of the song. I'm like, this is crazy. It's so like Outkast is a great example. Like I listened to like Outkast stuff from like the late 90s to early 2000s. Like this is profound. It's like alien music, you know, and then like in the best way. Like it's like I feel like we're like getting these like codes from other dimensions that are so deep and far beyond like the more straight ahead 4/4 like rock and roll kind of rhythm. Which I mean, there's like, I'm such a huge John Bonham of Led Zeppelin fan too. Like I can't not love that as like drumming, but rhythm is just like so alive in a lot of these like amazing hip hop artists. And yeah, I think those are my two big ones right now.
I know we're a little short on time, so I want to close. You mentioned this a few minutes ago, that the experience of going to Ghana changed your life. And the documentary that was produced, and the name of the documentary is now the name of your company. Yeah. What are you up to now? How did it change your life? And anything you'd like to add about, I guess, the role of, any additional thoughts on the role of rhythm? I would love to hear, but I would love to also hear what you're up to and how that trajectory changed after that experience. Yeah, totally.
Currently where I'm really putting a lot of focus is in bringing rhythm to people's lives. And there's the main way I'm doing that right now is through breathwork. I've created this breathwork practice that is powered by live drumming. And what I find really powerful about that is that breathing, as I mentioned a little earlier, is so rhythmic, and it becomes very transportive to connect the breath to the drum. It's almost like a rocket ship that you're kind of holding on to, you know, like your breathing, that's already powerful enough. Breathwork is already powerful enough. But when you put it on this like vehicle, the vehicle being the drum, I find that it takes you deeper than without the drum and into some like pretty wild, uncharted territory. I also work with different like people of all ages to help them connect to rhythm too. I kind of consider myself a rhythm consultant.
Yeah.
And help people like learn to play drums, but beyond playing drums, like how to access rhythm. And that can look like, doing stuff with corporate clients, team building, bringing coherence, active listening into the workplace. But really like I think the mental health space is really where my passion is. And I think the documentary project was starting to tap into that. Like really, how do I use drumming and rhythm to help bring more joy, alleviate loneliness, build community, bring people together. That's really where my passion is in this moment.
And if people want to hire you as a rhythm consultant or attend one of your breathwork ceremonies, or just what's the best way for them to find you? I don't know if there's anything coming up that you would recommend or performances you have coming up for people to see you, but I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, Instagram is where I'm the most active.
Yeah.
Caleb Spaulding drums. And my website's rhythmofhappiness.com. And my documentary is on there. As it stands right now, it's 4 little vignettes, like mini docs, and 1 long performance piece that we shot. And I'm also preparing to release my first solo album.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Of all percussion. So it's like this rhythmic journey that I created. And I'm excited to share it with the world.
Yeah. This is fascinating. Thank you, Caleb.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
What a joy.